Millionaire disguises himself as a waiter and enters his own hotel. But no one knows who he is. He is horrified when something happens. Carlos Montero, a successful 30-year-old businessman, looked at himself in the mirror one last time before leaving his luxurious penthouse. His reflection showed an unrecognizable man. Hair dyed a common brown shade, brown contact lenses hiding his green eyes, and a fake mustache giving him a completely different appearance. He was wearing the uniform of a waiter from the Emperor Hotel, the jewel of his hotel empire. "It's now or never," he murmured to himself. Taking a deep breath, Carlos had inherited the hotel chain from his father just 2 years ago, and since then he had been struggling to maintain the prestige and quality that had made the Montero brand famous. However, guest complaints had increased over the past year, and financial reports showed a worrying downward trend. Frustrated by his inability to identify the problem from his position as CEO, Carlos had devised a bold plan. He would work incognito in his own hotel for a month, observing daily operations and the interaction between employees and guests firsthand. With his heart pounding, Carlos left his apartment and headed to the Emperor Hotel. Upon arrival, he introduced himself in the personnel office as Carlos Mendoza, the new waiter hired to cover the summer vacation period. The head of personnel, a middle-aged woman named Sophia, greeted him with a tired smile. "Welcome, Carlos. I hope you're ready to work hard. We're short-staffed and the high season has just begun." Carlos nodded, nervous but determined. "I'm here to do my best, ma'am." Sophia handed him an access card and a schedule. "Your shift starts in 15 minutes. Head to the 4th floor and report to Javier, the housekeeping supervisor. He'll assign your tasks." As he rode the service elevator, Carlos couldn't help but notice how different everything felt from this new perspective. The luxury he had always taken for granted now seemed out of reach, and the grandeur of the hotel that had once filled him with pride now intimidated him. Upon reaching the 4th floor, he found Javier, a burly man in his 40s, with a stern expression. "You must be the new guy," he grunted. "Take this cart and start with rooms 401 to 410. You have 30 minutes per room. If you finish early, help your colleagues. If you finish late, you stay until you're done. Got it?" Carlos nodded, taking the heavy cleaning cart. As he walked away, he heard Javier mutter, "These newbies, they never last." The next few hours were a whirlwind of wrinkled sheets, wet towels, and cleaning products. Carlos, accustomed to spending his days in a comfortable office, soon found himself sweating and panting. His hands, once soft, began to chafe from the chemicals. During his lunch break, Carlos sat in the employee cafeteria, observing his colleagues with curiosity. Most ate in silence with tired expressions on their faces. A young waitress sat across from him, offering a kind smile. "I'm Anna," she introduced herself. "First day?" Carlos nodded, returning the smile. "It shows, doesn't it?" Anna laughed softly. "A little. Don't worry, we all go through it. If you need help, you can ask me." As they talked, Carlos realized how little he knew about the daily lives of his employees. Anna told him about the long hours, difficult guests, and the constant pressure to maintain the standards of a luxury hotel with limited resources. "The worst are the managers," Anna whispered, glancing around cautiously. "Especially Rodriguez. He treats us like we're disposable." Carlos frowned. He vaguely remembered Rodriguez, the general manager he had hired a year ago based solely on his impressive resume. "What do you mean?" Before Anna could answer, a shrill voice echoed in the cafeteria. "Break time ended 2 minutes ago. Everyone back to work now." Carlos watched as everyone hurriedly stood up, throwing the remains of their food into the trash. Anna gave him an apologetic look before disappearing down the hallway. As he returned to his cleaning cart, Carlos felt a mix of emotions: guilt for not paying more attention to his employees' working conditions, determination to improve the situation, and a growing curiosity to discover what else he didn't know about his own hotel. Little did Carlos know that his adventure as a waiter was about to lead him down a path filled with challenges, revelations, and difficult decisions that would forever change the fate of the Emperor Hotel and everyone working in it. As the days passed, Carlos became more immersed in his role as a waiter. His hands, once soft, were now rough and cracked from constant contact with cleaning products. His muscles ached from the physical labor he was unaccustomed to, but his determination grew with each discovery he made about the hotel's reality. One morning, while cleaning the presidential suite, Carlos overheard voices coming from the hallway. He immediately recognized the deep, authoritative voice of Rodriguez, the general manager. "We need to implement that new VIP service as soon as possible," Rodriguez was saying. "Revenue is down 15% this quarter, and Mr. Montero is asking uncomfortable questions." Carlos tensed at hearing his own name. He moved closer to the door to listen better. "But sir," responded another voice which Carlos recognized as Sophia, the head of personnel, "we don't have enough staff to offer personalized 24/7 service to VIP guests. We're already stretched thin." "That's not my problem," snapped Rodriguez. "Do more with less, Sophia. If you can't handle it, I'll find someone who can." Carlos clenched his fists, furious. How could Rodriguez be so insensitive? He was about to step out and confront him when he remembered his disguise. As a waiter, he didn't have the power to challenge the general manager. That night, during dinner in the employee cafeteria, Carlos sat with Anna and other waiters. The conversation revolved around the new VIP service. "They're going to squeeze every last bit of time and energy out of us," complained Peter, a veteran waiter. "And I bet we won't see a single extra cent for the additional effort." Anna sighed. "The worst part is that they don't even ask for our opinion. We have ideas to improve the service, but no one listens." Carlos saw an opportunity. "What kind of ideas?" he asked curiously. Anna's eyes lit up. "Well, for example, we could create a more efficient communication system between departments. Sometimes a guest requests something at reception and the information doesn't reach us in time, or we could personalize rooms based on the preferences of regular guests." Carlos was impressed. These were exactly the kind of innovative ideas he had been looking for. "That sounds great, Anna. Why don't you propose them?" Anna's smile faded. "I tried once. Rodriguez told me to stick to cleaning rooms and stop thinking about things that were beyond my reach." Carlos's indignation grew. Not only was Rodriguez putting too much pressure on the staff, but he was also stifling valuable ideas that could improve the hotel. In the following days, Carlos closely observed the dynamics between employees and management. He noticed how supervisors often ignored legitimate concerns from waiters, how resources were wasted due to poor communication, and how stress and lack of recognition were affecting team morale. One afternoon, while cleaning the lobby, Carlos witnessed an incident that left him chilled. A guest was yelling at a young receptionist, accusing her of losing his reservation. "I demand to speak to the manager," the man shouted. Rodriguez quickly appeared, all smiles and apologies to the guest. But as soon as the guest walked away, his expression changed. "How could you make such a stupid mistake?" he hissed at the receptionist, who was visibly trembling. "If this happens again, I'll find someone more competent for the job," Carlos saw. The young woman struggled to hold back tears. He wanted to intervene, to tell Rodriguez that this was not how employees should be treated, but he knew he couldn't risk blowing his cover. That night, lying in the small room he shared with two other waiters in the employee accommodation, Carlos couldn't sleep. His mind raced, trying to process everything he had seen and heard. He realized that the hotel's problem wasn't just about efficiency or customer service. It was a cultural problem. Under Rodriguez's leadership, a climate of fear and distrust had been created. Employees, fearful of losing their jobs, didn't dare speak up or take initiative. Carlos knew he had to do something, but he also understood that real change would require more than just firing Rodriguez. He needed to completely transform the way the hotel was managed. As sleep finally overtook him, Carlos began to form a plan. It wouldn't be easy, and he would surely face resistance, but he was determined to make the Emperor Hotel not only a place of luxury for guests, but also a place where employees felt valued and respected. What Carlos didn't know was that his biggest challenge was yet to come, and that before he could implement his plans for change, he would have to face situations that would test not only his determination, but also his own identity. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon when Carlos, still sleepy, headed to the hotel for his morning shift. He had spent another night tossing and turning, his mind full of ideas and worries about how to improve conditions at the Emperor Hotel. As he pushed his cleaning cart down the hallway of the 5th floor, he heard a commotion coming from one of the suites. He approached cautiously and saw Javier, the housekeeping supervisor, arguing heatedly with a guest. "This is unacceptable," yelled the man, a middle-aged executive in an immaculate suit. "I've paid a fortune for this suite, and it's full of dust. Do you call this a 5-star hotel?" Javier, visibly nervous, tried to calm the guest. "Sir, I assure you we'll send someone immediately to fix the problem." "I don't want excuses," the man roared. "I want to speak to the manager right now." At that moment, Carlos made an impulsive decision. He stepped forward and said calmly, "Excuse me, sir, I'm the new waiter assigned to this floor. If you'll allow me, I'll personally make sure your suite is thoroughly cleaned." The guest looked at him with disdain. "And what makes you think you'll do a better job than the incompetent people who cleaned before?" Carlos, maintaining his composure, replied, "Sir, I understand your frustration. I promise I'll take all the time necessary to ensure the suite is spotless. If you're not satisfied after my cleaning, you can speak directly with the manager." The man seemed to consider this for a moment. "Fine," he finally said. "You have an hour. If I'm not satisfied, I'll have the entire cleaning staff fired." Javier shot Carlos a warning look before quickly walking away. Carlos entered the suite, aware that he had much more at stake than just cleaning a room for the next hour. Carlos worked like never before. He cleaned every corner, dusted every surface, and paid attention to the smallest details. He used techniques he had learned by observing his more experienced colleagues and added personal touches that he knew would impress a demanding guest. When the executive returned, Carlos held his breath as the man meticulously inspected the suite. Finally, the guest turned to him with a look of surprise. "I must admit I'm impressed," he said. "Not only is it spotless, but you've also organized my work papers very efficiently. How did you know how to do that?" Carlos, remembering his role, responded humbly, "My father was an executive assistant, sir. He taught me a few tricks about organization." The guest nodded approvingly. "Well done, I'll make sure to commend your work to management." As soon as the man left the room, Carlos allowed himself to breathe a sigh of relief. He had averted a crisis, but he knew this was just the beginning. Carlos left the suite with a mix of relief and concern. He had avoided an immediate crisis, but he knew this was just the tip of the iceberg. The structural problems of the hotel remained, threatening to explode at any moment. As he pushed his cleaning cart toward the next room, he found himself face to face with Rodriguez, the general manager. The man looked at him with an unreadable expression. "You're the new guy, right?" Rodriguez asked in a tone that made Carlos tense. "Up. The guest in 507 just called reception to commend your work. He says you're the best waiter he's seen in years." Carlos nodded nervously, aware that he was walking a fine line. "I just did my job, sir." Rodriguez narrowed his eyes. "Just your job? Listen, kid, I don't know what game you're playing, but let me warn you, in this hotel, no one is indispensable. If you think you can play the hero and bypass the chain of command, you're very wrong." Carlos's heart was pounding. Did Rodriguez suspect something? "I don't understand, sir. I just wanted to help," he replied, maintaining his facade of innocence. "Help, huh?" Rodriguez sneered. "Well, here's a chance to really help. The guest in 610 has been complaining all week. Nothing satisfies him. Go there and fix the problem. If you succeed, I might reconsider your position here." With that, Rodriguez walked away, leaving Carlos with a sense of unease. He knew room 610 was notorious among the staff for housing a particularly difficult guest. Upon reaching the room, Carlos knocked gently on the door. A sharp, annoyed voice responded from inside. "It's about time. I've been waiting all morning." The door swung open, revealing a woman in her 50s, dressed in designer clothes and covered in jewelry. Her expression was one of pure disgust. "Well," she snapped, "are you just going to stand there or do something useful?" Carlos took a deep breath and entered the room. For the next 2 hours, he faced an endless barrage of complaints and demands. The pillow was too soft, the air conditioning too cold, The minibar didn't have her favorite brand of mineral water with each complaint. Carlos responded with patience and professionalism, finding creative solutions to problems that seemed insoluble. He changed the pillows, adjusted the temperature, and even ran to a nearby store to get the specific brand of water the guest demanded. Finally, when it seemed he had addressed every possible demand, the woman looked at him with a less hostile expression. "Well, at least you know how to do your job," she said, in what seemed to be the closest thing to a compliment she could offer. Exhausted but satisfied, Carlos was about to leave when the woman added, "Oh, one more thing, I need you to take this dress to the dry cleaner and bring it back within an hour. It's for an event tonight and I can't wait." Carlos looked at the clock. It was impossible to take the dress to the dry cleaner and bring it back in such a short time, but he also knew that refusing could undo all the progress he had made. At that moment he had an idea. "Ma'am, if you'll allow me, I can personally take care of your dress right here in the hotel. We have an express ironing service that could have it looking perfect in less than an hour." The woman looked at him skeptically. "If you ruin my dress, I'll make sure you get fired," she warned. "I understand the risk, ma'am." "Trust me," Carlos replied with a confidence he didn't know he had. For the next hour, Carlos worked frantically. He used all the skills he had acquired by observing the hotel staff and some tricks he remembered from his life as a businessman. He ironed, steamed, and added the finishing touches to the dress with a precision that surprised even himself. When he presented the dress to the guest, she examined it critically. After a moment that seemed eternal, a small smile appeared on her lips. "Impressive," she finally said. "I've never seen anyone in this hotel work like this. I'll definitely mention this in my review." Carlos left the room feeling as if he had run a marathon. He had passed the test, but the emotional toll had been high for the first time. Since starting his undercover adventure, he wondered if he really had what it took to change things from within. As he walked down the hallway, he saw Rodriguez watching him from a distance. The manager's expression was a mix of surprise and something Carlos couldn't identify. Suspicion, respect, or something more sinister. Carlos knew he had caught Rodriguez's attention, for better or worse. Now he had to decide his next move carefully. The game was becoming more dangerous and the stakes were getting higher. The following days were a whirlwind of activity for Carlos. His success with Yi. Difficult guests had not gone unnoticed, and soon he found himself assigned to the most complicated tasks and the most demanding clients. On one hand, this gave him the opportunity to observe the hotel's operations more closely and identify weaknesses in the service. On the other hand, the increased responsibilities made it harder to maintain his cover. One afternoon, while cleaning the pool area, Carlos noticed Ana, the friendly waitress he had met on his first day, arguing heatedly with Javier, the housekeeping supervisor. "You can't keep ignoring this," Ana exclaimed. "The pool maintenance equipment needs to be replaced. It's dangerous for guests and for us." Javier seemed exasperated. "Ana, we've talked about this. There's no budget for new equipment. You'll have to make do with what we have." "But Javier, it's a safety issue," Ana insisted. "Enough," Javier snapped. "If you can't do your job with the equipment we have, maybe we should find someone who can." Ana walked away, visibly frustrated and on the verge of tears. Carlos, unable to contain himself, followed her to a quiet corner behind the pool bar. "Ana, are you okay?" he asked gently. She started, as if she hadn't noticed his presence. "Oh, Carlos. Yes, No. The truth is, I'm not okay." She sighed deeply. "It's just that I love this job. I love taking care of the guests, but every day it gets harder to do it well with the resources we have." Carlos nodded understandingly. "I get it. I've noticed a lot of things that could be improved since I got here." Ana looked at him curiously. "You know, for being new, you seem to understand a lot about how a hotel works." For a moment, Carlos feared he had said too much, but then he saw an opportunity. "Well, I've worked in several hotels before, and I've always been interested in understanding how things work, not just doing my job." "That's great," Ana said, a spark of enthusiasm in her eyes. "I wish more people here thought that way. I have so many ideas to improve things, but no one wants to listen." "Tell me some of those ideas," Carlos suggested, genuinely interested. For the next hour, While pretending to clean the pool area, Ana shared with Carlos a series of innovative proposals. From a more efficient communication system between departments to cross-training programs so that employees could better understand each other's work. Carlos was impressed. Ana not only had brilliant ideas, but also a deep understanding of the hotel's operations and a true commitment to service excellence. "Ana, these ideas are amazing," Carlos finally said. "Why haven't you proposed them formally?" Ana's smile faded. "I tried once. I prepared a presentation and everything, but Rodriguez told me to stick to my job and stop dreaming about things that were beyond my reach." Carlos's indignation grew. Not only were they wasting Ana's talent, but they were crushing her spirit and initiative. "You shouldn't give up," Carlos said firmly. "Your ideas could make a big difference in the hotel." Ana looked at him with a mix of hope and skepticism. "Do you think so?" "Sometimes I think I should look for a job elsewhere, where employees are valued more." "No," Carlos said quickly, surprising even himself with the vehemence of his response. "This hotel needs people like you, Ana. People who care, who want to make things better." Ana looked at him intently for a moment, as if trying to solve a puzzle. "There's something different about you, Carlos. You're not like the other new waiters I've met." Carlos felt a pang of panic. Had he been too obvious? But before he could respond, Ana continued, "It's refreshing, you know, having someone who really listens, who understands. Most people here just want to do their job and go home." Carlos relaxed a little. "Well, I believe we can all make a difference no matter what our position is." Ana smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "You know, maybe we need to be more creative in how we present our ideas. If management doesn't want to listen, maybe we can implement some small changes on our own." Carlos raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "Well," Ana said, lowering her voice, "I've been thinking of a way to improve communication between housekeeping and maintenance. If we could better coordinate our schedules and tasks, we could be much more efficient." Carlos nodded, his mind already working on the possibilities. "That sounds great. How do we start?" As Ana explained her plan, Carlos realized he had found more than an ally. He had found someone who shared his vision of what the Emperor Hotel could be. What Carlos didn't know was that this unexpected alliance was about to put him on a collision course with Rodriguez and hotel management. The changes he and Ana were about to initiate, though small at first, would be the spark that ignited a transformation much larger than either of them could imagine. And as the sun set over the Emperor Hotel's pool, Carlos felt, for the first time since beginning his undercover mission, a true hope that he could achieve the change he had come to seek. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Carlos and Ana. Working in secret, they began to implement small changes in their daily routines. They created a coded note system to communicate between different shifts, improved the organization of cleaning carts to increase efficiency, and even developed a method to prioritize maintenance requests. At first, the changes were subtle. Other employees barely noticed them, but little by little the effects became evident. Guest complaints decreased, rooms were cleaned faster, and the overall atmosphere among the housekeeping staff improved significantly. However, not everything was rosy. Carlos noticed that Rodriguez was watching him more closely, with a look that mixed suspicion and frustration. It was as if the general manager could sense that something was changing, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what or who was behind it. One morning, while Carlos was cleaning the lobby, he overheard a conversation between Rodriguez and Sofia, the head of personnel. "Something is going on with the Tese housekeeping staff," Rodriguez said, his voice filled with irritation. "They're too efficient, organized. I don't like it." Sofia seemed confused. "But sir, isn't that a good thing? Complaints have decreased, and guests seem more satisfied." "It's not just that," Rodriguez snapped. "It's about control. If they start thinking they can change things on their own, what's next? Demanding raises, better conditions? No, we need to put a stop to this." Carlos felt a chill run down his spine. He knew they were walking on thin ice, but he hadn't expected such a negative reaction to the improvements. That afternoon, during his break, Carlos shared what he had heard with Ana. The young waitress turned pale. "Do you think they suspect us?" she asked. her voice barely a whisper. Carlos shook his head. I don't think they know it's us specifically. But Rodriguez knows something is changing and he doesn't like it. Ana bit her lip, thoughtful. Maybe we should stop if they find out we could lose our jobs. Carlos felt a pang of guilt. Ana didn't know he was the owner of the hotel and that his job wasn't really at risk. But for her and all the other employees, the threat was very real. No, he said finally, with a determination that surprised even himself. We can't stop now. What we're doing is making things better for everyone. We have to keep going. Ana looked at him with a mix of admiration and concern. But how? If Rodriguez is looking for culprits, it's only a matter of time before he finds out it's us. Carlos thought for a moment. Maybe it's time to be bolder. If more people get involved, it will be harder for Rodriguez to pinpoint anyone in particular. What do you have in mind? Ana asked, intrigued. A grassroots movement, Carlos said, feeling the idea take shape in his mind. We'll share our ideas with more employees, not all at once, but gradually. We'll start with those we trust. The most. Ana nodded slowly, a smile forming on her lips. It could work. And if more people see the benefits, it will be harder for management to ignore us. In the following weeks, Carlos and Ana worked tirelessly to expand their network. They shared their ideas with Peter, the veteran waiter, with Lucy, a perceptive receptionist, and even with Javier, the housekeeping supervisor, who to their surprise was receptive once he saw the positive results. The movement grew quietly, like an underground river. Employees began to communicate better between departments, share resources, and knowledge efficiency increased even more. And the atmosphere in the hotel became more collaborative and positive. However, the storm Carlos had foreseen finally erupted on a Friday afternoon. Rodriguez called an emergency meeting with all the staff. The general manager paced in front of the assembled employees, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Unauthorized changes have been made to the hotel's procedures, he began, his voice cold as ice. This is unacceptable. Anyone caught altering established protocols will be fired immediately. A tense silence fell over the room. Carlos could feel the fear emanating from his colleagues. He was about to speak, to take responsibility, when Ana stepped forward. Mr. Rodriguez, she said, her voice trembling slightly but firm, the changes we've made have improved our service. Guests are more satisfied and we can do our jobs more efficiently. Rodriguez turned to her, his eyes blazing dangerously. Are you admitting that you're behind this, Ana? Before Ana could respond, Peter, the veteran waiter, intervened. It's not just Ana, sir. We've all contributed to these changes. That's right, added Lucy from the reception desk, and the results speak for themselves. Complaints have decreased by 30% since we implemented the new communication system. One by one, the employees began to speak up, defending the changes and explaining how they had improved their work and the service to guests. Rodriguez seemed stunned. Clearly, he hadn't expected such unified resistance. This is insubordination, he stammered. You can't just decide to change things on your own. Carlos knew it was time to intervene. He stepped forward, aware that what he was about to do could change everything. Mr. Rodriguez, he said calmly, these changes are not a threat. They're an opportunity. The staff has shown initiative and dedication to improving the hotel. Shouldn't we at least consider their ideas? Rodriguez looked at him intently, a spark of recognition in his eyes. You, he said slowly, you're the new guy, the one who's been causing trouble since he arrived. Carlos kept his composure, aware that all eyes were on him. I haven't caused trouble, sir. I've just tried to do my job as best I can, just like everyone here. The tension in the room was palpable. For a moment, it seemed like Rodriguez was going to explode, but then, unexpectedly, Sophia, the head of personnel, intervened. Mr. Rodriguez, she said firmly, I think we should listen to what they have to say. The numbers don't lie. If these changes are improving our service, shouldn't we at least consider them? Rodriguez looked around, realizing he was losing control of the situation. With a frustrated growl, he said, Fine, you have a week to present. Me with a detailed report of all the changes you've made and their results. After that, I'll decide what stays and what goes. And if I find out anyone has been hiding information or acting behind my back, there will be consequences. Understood. A murmur of assent ran through the room. As the employees began to disperse, Carlos exchanged a look with Anna. They had won a small victory, but they knew the real battle was just beginning. What Carlos didn't know was that this confrontation had planted a seed of suspicion in Rodriguez's mind. The general manager was determined to find out who this new waiter really was, who seemed to know too much and have too much influence. The storm brewing was bigger than Carlos could imagine, and he would soon find himself in the eye of the hurricane, fighting not only for the hotel's future, but also to keep his true identity hidden. The days following the meeting were a frenzy of activity. Carlos, Anna, and the rest of the team worked tirelessly to document all the changes they had implemented and their positive results. Sleepless nights, heated discussions, and a general sense of anxiety dominated the hotel's atmosphere. Meanwhile, Carlos noticed that Rodriguez was watching him more and more closely. He felt the general manager's eyes following him through the hallways, scrutinizing his every move. The pressure was almost unbearable, and Carlos knew it was only a matter of time before his cover was blown. One afternoon, while Carlos was cleaning the hotel bar, he overheard a conversation that chilled him to the bone. "I'm telling you, Sophia, there's something off about that new waiter," Rodriguez said in a low but intense voice. "I've been investigating, and there's no record of him in any of the hotels he claims to have worked at." Sophia seemed skeptical. "Are you sure, Rodriguez? Maybe he used a different name or—" "No," Rodriguez interrupted. "There's something more. The way he talks, how he understands the business. He's not just a waiter, and I'm going to find out who he really is." Carlos felt panic grip him. His mind raced, trying to find a way out. He knew he couldn't maintain the charade much longer, but he also couldn't reveal his identity yet. Not when they were so close to achieving real change in the hotel. That night, Carlos barely slept. He tossed and turned in his small bed in the employee quarters, aware that his decisions in the coming days could determine not only his future, but that of all the employees who had trusted him. The next morning, as he prepared for his shift, he made a decision. He needed to trust someone, and that someone had to be Anna. She had been his ally from the beginning, and she deserved to know the truth. He found Anna in the supply room, organizing towels. "Anna," he said quietly, "I need to talk to you in private." Something in his tone must have alarmed her, because she nodded without asking questions and followed him to a secluded corner of the hotel basement. "Anna, there's something I need to tell you," Carlos began, his heart pounding. "I'm not who you think I am." Anna looked at him with a mix of confusion and concern. "What are you talking about, Carlos?" Taking a deep breath, Carlos revealed the whole truth. He told her about his real identity as the hotel owner, his plan to work undercover, and his reasons for doing so. He saw Anna's expression shift from surprise to shock and finally to something he couldn't identify. When he finished, there was a long silence. Finally, Anna spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because Rodriguez is suspecting," Carlos replied, "and because I need your help. We've come too far to give up now." Anna looked at him for what felt like an eternity. Then, to Carlos's surprise, a small smile formed on her lips. "You know, part of me always knew there was something different about you. But this is crazy." "I know," Carlos said, feeling relieved that Anna didn't seem angry. "Will you help me?" Anna nodded slowly. "Of course. But now that I know who you really are, I have some more ambitious ideas I'd like to share." Before Carlos could respond, the basement door burst open. Rodriguez stood there, his face a mask of triumphant fury. "I knew it," he shouted. "I knew you were up to something. Who are you really? A spy from the competition? An undercover journalist?" Carlos straightened up, knowing the moment of truth had arrived. "No, Rodriguez, I'm Carlos Montero, the owner of this hotel." The silence that followed was deafening. Rodriguez looked like he had been struck by lightning, his mouth opening and closing without making a sound. Anna, despite having been informed moments before, seemed equally shocked to hear the revelation out loud. This is impossible," Rodriguez finally stammered. "Why would the owner of the hotel work as a waiter?" "To see firsthand what really happens here," Carlos replied, his voice firm. "To understand why a hotel that was once the pride of the city was losing its shine, and what I've seen has deeply disappointed me." Rodriguez seemed to regain some of his composure. "Mr. Montero, if you have complaints about my management, we could have discussed them in my office. There was no need for this charade." "Really?" Carlos replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Like the last time I tried to discuss the hotel's problems with you and you assured me everything was under control. No, Rodriguez, I needed to see the truth for myself." At that moment, Sophia appeared at the door, drawn by the commotion. "What's going on here?" she asked, looking confused at the scene in front of her. "What's happening?" Carlos said, addressing not only Sophia but also Rodriguez and Ana. "Is that it's time for real change at the Emperor Hotel, and that change starts now." The atmosphere in the basement was charged with tension and anticipation. Carlos knew that what happened in the next few minutes would determine the hotel's future and everyone working in it. The confrontation that had been building for weeks had finally reached its breaking point, and Carlos was ready to face it, head on. The silence that followed Carlos's declaration was broken by Rodriguez, who finally seemed to regain his speech. "Mr. Montero," he began, his tone a mixture of forced respect and barely contained resentment. "If you have complaints about my management, I am more than willing to discuss them. But this theater you've staged is completely unnecessary and unprofessional." Carlos remained calm, aware that every word and action in the next few moments would be crucial. "It's not just about complaints, Rodriguez. It's about truly understanding how this hotel operates from the ground up, and what I've seen has shown me that we need a fundamental change in how we operate." "But sir," Sophia intervened, still trying to process the situation, "what's wrong with our current way of operating? The numbers aren't everything, Sophia," Carlos gently interrupted. "I've seen demotivated employees, misused resources, and a work environment that stifles innovation and initiative. But I've also seen the incredible potential of this team when given the opportunity to shine." Ana, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "It's true," she said, her voice gaining confidence with each word. "The changes we've implemented in recent weeks have improved not only efficiency but also the team's morale. And it all started because someone finally listened to us and valued our ideas." Rodriguez looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Mr. Montero, I understand that you want to improve things, but these employees don't have the experience or vision to make decisions about how a luxury hotel should be run. There are reasons why things are done a certain way." Carlos felt his patience wearing thin. "And do those reasons include treating employees as if they're disposable, ignoring their ideas and concerns, creating an atmosphere of fear and distrust?" Rodriguez's face turned red with anger. "I've kept this hotel running. I've met financial targets year after year." "At what cost, Rodriguez?" Carlos retorted firmly. "You've met short-term targets, but you've been eroding the foundations of what makes this hotel great, its people." He turned to Sophia and Ana. "What I've seen over these weeks is that we have an incredible team. People like Ana, who have brilliant ideas but have never been given the chance to share them. Employees who deeply care about the guests and about doing their jobs well, but who have been demoralized by leadership that doesn't value them." Sophia nodded slowly, as if seeing things in a new light. "It's true that we've had issues with staff turnover and employee satisfaction. Surveys haven't been the best in recent years." "Exactly," Carlos said. "And that reflects in the guest experience. We can have the most luxurious facilities in the world, but if our staff isn't motivated and empowered, we'll never achieve the excellence we strive for." Rodriguez, seeing he was losing ground, made one last defense. "Mr. Montero, I understand your point, but changing the entire management system of the hotel is risky. We could lose everything we've built." Carlos smiled, a smile that mixed determination and hope. "Or we could build something even better, Rodriguez. I'm not suggesting we throw away all your experience, but we need a new approach, one that combines your knowledge with the fresh ideas and passion of our team." He turned to everyone present. "What I propose is a complete transformation in how we operate. We're going to implement a participatory management system. Every department will have the opportunity to propose improvements and changes. We'll create multidisciplinary teams to address the hotel's challenges, and most importantly, We're going to invest in our staff, in their training and development." Anna couldn't contain her enthusiasm. "That's amazing! I have so many ideas about how we could improve the guest experience with just a few adjustments to our procedures." Sophia, though still somewhat skeptical, nodded slowly. "It could work. In fact, it could solve many of the communication issues we've had between departments." Rodriguez, seeing he was becoming isolated, finally relented. "I suppose we could give it a try. But how would we implement something like this?" Carlos smiled, feeling they were finally moving in the right direction. "We'll start with a series of meetings with all the staff. I want to hear everyone's ideas, from the waiters to the managers. Then we'll form working groups to develop and implement the best proposals." He turned to Rodriguez. "And I'll need your help, Rodriguez. Your experience will be crucial to ensure these changes are implemented effectively and without compromising the quality of our service." Rodriguez seemed surprised for a moment, but then nodded determinedly. "Understood, Mr. Montero. If this is the path you've chosen for the hotel, I'll do everything I can to make it a success." "Excellent," Carlos said. "Now we have a lot of work ahead of us, Sophia. Please organize a general meeting for tomorrow morning. It's time for all the staff to know about the changes coming." As Sophia and Rodriguez left to begin preparations, Carlos stayed behind with Anna. "Thank you," he said simply. Anna looked at him curiously. "For what?" "For believing in me, even when you discovered who I really was. For not giving up on your ideas despite the obstacles. You're the kind of person who makes this hotel great, Anna." Anna smiled, her eyes shining with excitement and determination. "Thanks to you for giving us this opportunity. We won't let you down." As they left the basement, Carlos felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be resistance, challenges, and moments of doubt. But looking at Anna, seeing the hope and enthusiasm in her face, he knew he had made the right decision. The Emperor Hotel was about to embark on its most ambitious transformation to date. And Carlos was determined to ensure it was a success, not just for the business but for every person who called the hotel their workplace. The following months were a whirlwind of activity at the Emperor Hotel. The general meeting Carlos had convened marked the beginning of a new era for the establishment. At first, there was skepticism and resistance from some employees and middle managers who feared change. However, as the new ideas began to be implemented and positive results became evident, even the most reluctant began to embrace the transformation. Carlos, now operating openly as the owner of the hotel, made sure to stay involved at all levels of the operation. He established a Day in the Life program where managers, including himself, regularly spent a day working in different hotel positions. This not only helped keep management in touch with the day-to-day reality, but also fostered greater respect and understanding among all levels of the organization. Anna became a key player in the hotel's new structure. Her creativity and deep understanding of operations led to her being named Director of Innovation and Continuous Improvement, a position created specifically for her. Under her leadership, numerous improvements were implemented, from a new internal communication system to a guest experience personalization program. Rodriguez, to the surprise of many, including himself, flourished in the new environment. Once he overcame his initial resistance to change, his experience and business knowledge proved invaluable in implementing the new ideas effectively. He became a mentor to many young employees, sharing his experience while learning new ways of thinking from them. Sophia, for her part, led a revolution in the hotel's human resources management. She implemented professional development programs, improved employee benefits, and created a more inclusive and collaborative work environment. As the months passed, the results spoke for themselves. Guest satisfaction reached record levels, staff turnover drastically decreased, and the Emperor Hotel began to gain recognition in the industry for its innovative, people-centered approach. A year after Carlos's big reveal, the hotel hosted a gala to celebrate its transformation. In the elegant ballroom, surrounded by employees, guests, and figures from the hospitality industry, Carlos stood up to give a speech. "A year ago," he began, his voice resonating in the silent room. I put on a waiter's uniform and entered this hotel, hoping to understand what was going wrong. What I discovered was that our greatest asset, our most valuable treasure, was being ignored. Our people. He paused, looking at the attentive faces around him. He saw Anna, radiant in an elegant dress, Rodriguez with a proud smile, and Sophia, nodding in approval. Today, a year later, I'm here to tell you that the success we've achieved is not mine, it's yours. Every waiter who suggested an improvement in room cleaning, every receptionist who proposed a more efficient way to handle check-ins, every chef who innovated in our menu, this success belongs to all of you. The applause erupted in the room and Carlos waited for it to calm down before continuing. But our journey doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. The Emperor Hotel has always been known for its luxury, but now we will be known for something more. For being a place where every employee is valued, where every idea is heard, and where excellence is not just a goal, but a way of life. He raised his glass to the future of the Emperor Hotel. To you, the heart and soul of this place, and to all the guests who honor us with their presence, allowing us to do what we love every day. The toast was met with a standing ovation. As Carlos stepped down from the stage, he was immediately surrounded by employees and guests who wanted to congratulate him and share their own stories of how the change had impacted their lives. Amid the bustle, Carlos found himself face to face with Anna. She looked at him with a mix of admiration and affection. "You know," she said with a smile, "when I found out who you really were, I never imagined we would get this far." Carlos laughed softly. "Neither did I. But you taught me something important, Anna. You taught me to see the potential in every person, in every idea. You were the spark that ignited all of this." Anna blushed slightly. "Well, you were the one who had the courage to make the change, to risk everything for a vision." "And it was worth every minute," Carlos replied, looking around the room full of happy, proud faces. As the party continued around him, Carlos allowed himself a moment of reflection. The journey hadn't been easy. There were moments of doubt, challenges that seemed insurmountable, and days when he wondered if he had made the right decision. But looking around, seeing the joy and pride on his employees' faces, the satisfaction in the eyes of the guests, he knew without a doubt that he had done the right thing. The Emperor Hotel wasn't just a business, it was a community, a family, and together they had created something truly special. As the night wore on, Carlos mingled with the guests, listening to stories, sharing laughs, and making plans for the future. And in every conversation, in every handshake and hug, he felt the confirmation of a fundamental truth. True luxury wasn't in high-thread count sheets or crystal chandeliers. It was in the passion and dedication of the people who brought the hotel to life every day. The Emperor Hotel had been reborn, stronger and brighter than ever. And as Carlos looked to the future, he knew the best was yet to come.